She was down a set and trailing in the second when the sky opened up over Washington. Play stopped. The trophy stayed locked in its case. Nobody in that stadium knew it yet, but the match that would make history was about to be interrupted for almost an entire day. And when Alex Eala finally walked back onto that court, something had changed. Not the scoreboard. Not yet. Something in her. 24 hours earlier, she had been trailing the world number 3, a former U.S. Open finalist with a serve built to end rallies before they start. 24 hours later, she would win 9 straight games. 9. Against a top 3 player on the biggest stage of her career. But to understand how a 21-year-old from Manila got to that rain delay in the first place, you have to go back further than one tournament. You have to go back 7 months to a night in Melbourne when she lost so badly it looked like her breakthrough might be over before it began. That January defeat came in the first round of the Australian Open. Her opponent was an American named Alicia Parks, a player with one of the fastest serves in the sport, once clocked at 129 miles per hour, matching a mark set by Venus Williams back in 2007. Eala lost the first set to her without winning a single game. 6-love. In professional tennis, a bagel like that isn't just a loss, it's a message. And the message usually reads, "You don't belong here yet." She fought back to take the second set, pushed the third to the brink, and still walked off the court, having lost. Ranked outside the top 45 at the time, she said something afterward that nobody thought much of in the moment. She said a loss is only disappointment if you let it be the end of the story instead of the beginning of the next one. It sounded like the kind of thing athletes say after every defeat. It didn't sound like a promise. It turned out to be exactly that point. 7 months of ranking points, 7 months of matches against players who had beaten her before, 7 months of quietly climbing from outside the top 50 toward the edge of the top 20. By the time she arrived in Washington, her record against top 10 opponents in 2026 alone already stood near perfect. 7 wins against players ranked inside the top 10. A number that doesn't happen by accident and doesn't happen to a player who's still finding her footing. It happens to a player who has already found it and is waiting for the right stage to prove it. Washington turned out to be that stage. The Mubadala DC Open is a WTA 500 event, one tier below the biggest tournaments in the sport, but its draw this year read like a major. The reigning DC Open champion, Leylah Fernandez, was in the field. So was Alina Svitolina, an Olympic gold medalist and a former world number 3. So was Naomi Osaka, a 4-time Grand Slam champion who has spent more weeks as world number 1 than almost anyone of her generation. And so was Jessica Pegula, the top seed, ranked 3rd in the world. Eala didn't avoid any of them. She beat every single one. Fernandez, the woman who had lifted this same trophy the year before, fell in the second round. Svitolina, a former top 3 player with a Grand Slam semifinal pedigree, fell in the quarterfinals. Osaka, someone whose name alone has ended the tournaments of players far more experienced than Eala, fell in the semifinals. Consider what that semifinal actually represents. Osaka is not a name you get to skip past on reputation. She has 3 hardcourt major titles to her name and a game built specifically to punish exactly the kind of young, precise player Eala is supposed to be. And she lost anyway. By the time Eala walked out for the final, she had already done the hardest part of the tournament. Beating the top seed was still ahead of her, but she had already beaten the players who were supposed to make sure she never got the chance. The final itself nearly didn't finish on schedule. Eala dropped the first set 6-4, and Pegula had grabbed an early lead in the second when the rain arrived and suspended play with the Americans still in front. Officials pushed the match to the following day. For an athlete, an unfinished match hanging overnight is its own kind of pressure. A full night to sit with a deficit against one of the best players alive. When they resumed, Eala took the second set 6-4, leveling things, and what came next is the part that made the tennis world stop And pay attention. She won the third set 6-love. Not a close third set. A wipeout. Against the world number 3. She finished the match having landed 84% of her first serves, an extraordinary number at any level of the sport, and she did it without a single ace, which tells you this wasn't about overpowering anyone. It was about precision, patience, and a level head under conditions designed to break both. When it ended, she became the first Filipino, man or woman, ever to win a WTA Tour level singles title. Not just the first Filipina, the first Filipino, period. In a country of more than 110 million people with almost no history at the top of professional tennis, she had just done something no one from that nation had ever done. At the beginning of the week, "There's no way I would have thought that I would be holding this trophy," she said afterward. Winning a 500 is insane. The win pushed her ranking from 28 to a new career high of 20, an 8-spot jump in a single week, the biggest ranking leap of her career. And here's the detail that turns this from an impressive week into something structurally different. She had now beaten 3 top 3 seeded players and a former world number 1 across 5 matches in 5 days. Only a small handful of players in recent memory have taken down the top 3 seeds at a single tournament on their way to a title. There was no time to sit with it. Professional tennis doesn't pause for celebration. And the very next tournament on the calendar was already waiting, the National Bank Open in Toronto, a WTA 1000 event, one full tier above what she just won, and significantly more ranking points on the line. When the draw was released, something happened that would have been unthinkable to Eala herself a year earlier. She wasn't just in the field. She was seated, 25th to be exact. That single placement did 2 things at once. It meant the tournament now officially recognized her as one of the players who deserves protection from facing another seed too early. And it came with a first-round bye, a free pass directly into the second round, skipping an opening match entirely. For context on how far that is from where she stood, at this same tournament 1 year earlier, unseeded and largely unknown outside the Philippines, she lost in the very first round to Marketa Vondrousova in 3 sets. This year, she doesn't play that round at all, but a bye is not simply a gift. It's a trade. She gets rest, recovery time for a body that had just played 5 matches in 5 days, and extra preparation. What she loses is momentum, the rhythm of a player already locked into tournament form. And when the second round matchup was confirmed, it turned out to be almost poetic. Waiting for her in Toronto was Alicia Parks, the same American who had bageled her in Melbourne 7 months earlier. Parks had improved too in that stretch, climbing from outside the top 90 to the low 70s in the rankings. But climbing 70 is not the same as climbing 49 spots to a career high while winning a title against 3 top 3 opponents. The gap between them on paper looks similar to January. The gap between them in form does not. Here's where the story shifts into something bigger than one rematch, because Eala's placement in the draw isn't just about Parks. It's about who sits at the far end of it. The tournament's top seed is Aryna Sabalenka, the reigning world number 1, a 4-time Grand Slam hardcourt champion, and the defending Canadian champion. On paper, she is the overwhelming favorite, the kind of player whose serve and power have made her nearly untouchable on hard courts for years. But this season has shown cracks. Early exits at both the French Open and Wimbledon have raised real questions about her consistency, and analysts have already flagged her side of this draw as unusually dangerous, with Jelena Ostapenko, the player who beat her in a final just last year, looming as a possible third-round opponent. Sabalenka's path is not the coronation it might look like from the seeding sheet, and Eala's path, if she can navigate it, runs directly toward that same territory, just from the opposite direction. Beyond Parks in round 2 sits a projected third-round meeting with Linda Noskova, the reigning Wimbledon champion. Seeded 6th, this is not a favorable head-to-head. Noskova has beaten Eala twice already this year, in straight sets both times, at Indian Wells in March and again at the Berlin Open in June. Survive that, and the draw only gets heavier. A projected quarterfinal against two-time major champion Coco Gauff. Then, if the seedings hold all the way, a semifinal against world number 2 Elena Rybakina. And finally, at the absolute end of that road, Sabalenka herself in a possible final. It is, without exaggeration, one of the hardest possible routes through a WTA 1000 draw, stacked with a Wimbledon champion, a two-time slam winner, and two of the top 3 players alive, one after another. And this is the moment worth sitting with because it reframes everything that came before it. This isn't a story about a plucky underdog riding a hot week. A hot week ends. What's happening to Alex Eala right now looks like a structural shift, a player whose game has fundamentally leveled up in the space of 7 months. Tournament chairman Mark Ine, watching her run in Washington, put it simply, her strength isn't overpowering anyone, it's taking away time, cutting the court, forcing opponents into decisions they don't want to make. Against Pegula, a bigger hitter, that style produced a 6-love set in the biggest match of her life. Sabalenka hits even harder than Pegula. But the pattern Eala has shown all year is that raw power alone hasn't been enough to stop her. There's also a wrinkle in Sabalenka's side of the draw worth sitting with, because it changes how frightening this whole bracket really is for the top seed. She is chasing a title defense on a surface that has historically been her strongest, but she arrives with a season that hasn't matched her ranking, early departures in Paris, and at Wimbledon, both tournaments where a player of her caliber is expected to go deep, not exit ahead of schedule. A third-round meeting with Ostapenko, the very player who beat her in a final only a year ago, sits on her side of the draw like a landmine placed early rather than late. None of that guarantees anything for Eala. It simply means the version of Sabalenka waiting at the end of this road, if it comes to that, may not be the version that has dominated hard courts for years. It may be a champion under more pressure than her seeding suggests. That there's a human layer to this too, one that shows up in the stands, not the stat sheet. Eala isn't walking into Toronto as a quiet outsider. The city's Filipino community has already sold out the night sessions around her matches, turning what should be a hostile road environment into something closer to a home game. Reports from Washington described the same phenomenon. A wave of Filipino support loud enough that tournament veterans called it something they'd never quite seen before. She is playing, in a very literal sense, for a diaspora that has organized itself around her matches on 2 different continents in the same month, and she has been open about who she wants to test herself against next. Earlier this year, before any of this run began, she said plainly that every player dreams of getting a match against the world number 1. She wasn't being coy. She meant it as a goal, not a fantasy. So here is where the story actually sits right now, in real time. A 21-year-old who was outside the top 45 in January, who was bageled by the very woman she now has to beat again just to reach round 3, has become the 25th seed of a WTA 1000 tournament with a plausible, mapped-out route to the world number 1. Getting there means solving Parks, whose serve nearly ended her season in Melbourne. It means solving Noskova, who has never lost to her. It means somewhere down that same line, potentially solving 2 more of the best players on the planet. Every one of those matches is winnable. None of them is close to easy. That's not a knock on her chances. It's the honest shape of what a WTA 1000 title actually costs. Think, too, about what a first round bye actually buys a player in this sport, because it's easy to treat it as a footnote when really it might be the difference maker nobody outside the locker room appreciates. Eala had just spent 5 consecutive days on court, 3 sets deep in more than one of those matches, her body absorbing everything a rain-delayed, high-intensity final, and a run through 3 seeded opponents can put on a 21-year-old frame. Parks, meanwhile, had to win a match just to get here, using energy, using time, adjusting to Toronto's courts under tournament pressure while Eala was still traveling. That gap in freshness doesn't show up in a highlight reel. But ask any player on tour, and they'll tell you it shows up in the fourth game of a deciding set when legs and decision-making both start to go. The bye didn't just reward what Eala already did in Washington. It may end up shaping what she's capable of doing in Toronto. What makes this different from 100 other breakout stories in professional sports is the timing. This isn't the peak. The Canadian Open is a stop on the way to something bigger. After Toronto, regardless of how far she goes, she heads straight into the Cincinnati Open, another WTA 1000 event, and from there directly into the US Open, the biggest stage in North American tennis, and the tournament where a deep run would do more for her career than almost anything else on the calendar. There is no off-season cushion here, no time to simply enjoy what just happened in Washington. The tour moves in 5-day increments, and Eala is already 3 matches deep into thinking about a woman who once beat her without letting her win a single game. Maybe she loses to Parks, and this becomes a footnote, a great week in Washington that the record books remember fondly, and nothing more. Or maybe she gets through Parks, gets through Noskova despite in 0-2 head-to-head, and keeps climbing toward a final against the top seed on hard courts she has quietly been dismantling all year. Nobody knows which version of this story is true, yet not the analysts, not the tournament, not Eala herself. What's certain is this. 7 months ago, she walked off a court in Melbourne having won 0 games in a set against a woman she'll face again this week, and she called that loss an opportunity instead of an ending. She was right. The only question left is how much higher this particular staircase actually goes, and whether the world number 1 is waiting for her at the top of it, or whether the real story is still 1 match, 1 round, 1 small reversal away from writing itself all over again.